Welcome to a Bermuda yard in July. I want to make a video today for you to understand some of the points of frustration or difficulty or misunderstanding in a Bermuda grass lawn in the summertime, in the heat of the summer. July and August are the hottest 2 months. They're kind of like a season all by themselves. It's different than a Bermuda yard would be in January, February, April, even June. July and August are different than June. And so I want to look at some of those with you. I want to stand right here to start the video to take a look at, on my right or your left is the yard that we treat. We do weed control and fertilizer here. And then the yard on my left or your right is a yard that does not get treatments. This neighborhood in particular, like many neighborhoods that are newly developed neighborhoods, there's not a whole lot of focus that gets put on the topsoil. I want to talk to you about topsoil and irrigation and weeds and how they all play in effect with each other. Also, I want to talk about weeds, and if you could just see from the zoomed out perspective, like the yard looks great. I even walked up. We almost didn't stop by this yard today because we were trying to find a yard that we could do a video on a weed called Spurge, and we were like, yeah, they don't have weeds. But then you get out in the yard, and just like every Bermuda yard that you get out in July, you're going to be able to find a weed. The golf course across the ditch over there, if I went over there, I would find weeds, even though they have a much more regimented, much more frequent program of weed killer. In Bermuda grass, it's just the #1 weakness is that there's weeds. And so let's talk about weeds in a Bermuda yard, and I'm going to talk about a couple other things for this time of year that are really good to understand in your Bermuda lawn. Two of the most common weeds in a Bermuda yard are buttonweed and spurge. I want you to see right here, there's a gutter on the corner of the house. And at the base of a gutter is where you get more water than the other parts of the yard. And so at the base, if you zoom in and you look closely, zoomed out, maybe you don't really even notice that they're there, but if you really start looking closely, you'll see the water comes out. Buttonweed, Virginia buttonweed, is going to be having some white flowers the closer to August that we get that are going to come out. And spurge is another one, and that's really what I want to talk to you more today about, is about this spurge weed. It's got more mature versions of the spurge have these dots. By the way, there's a lot of different kinds of spurge, but they have dots in the very middle of the leaf. It may be hard to see on this video. It's kind of hard to see in person on these. Sometimes the spots are more obvious than others. But you can see the spots in the middle of that leaf, perhaps, of each individual leaf. This has two different types of spurge. You have this spurge right here that's got more of the green in it, and then this one really blends in. It's got more of a purple color to it. And so like I said earlier, there's a lot of different types of spurge that are out there. Sometimes it can be really, really small. So here's a little baby plant that's come up in the last few days. And then you have this guy who spreads out horizontally all from this singular taproot. And it's big, so it can be small, big, it can be green, it can be purple. There you go. And so this is also a place where you're going to find more weeds such as spurge and buttonweed. But spurge, what I want to show you about spurge is that it's able to survive in Bermuda yards more than other weeds, or any yard for that matter, but especially in Bermuda, because Bermuda has a thinner canopy. And because spurge has a taproot that if you get to the base of it, you can pull it up. And it's got this, I'm going to put my hand behind it so that you can see. It's got this singular taproot. And so it can get down to parts of the soil that Bermuda grass root system, or any other root system for that matter, doesn't have access to the moisture that's down deeper underground. And so this one can survive in the summer better than other weeds, and you can't prevent it with the common industry standard, top of the line pre-emerges that our industry uses all the time. We've used them for a long time, and they do a great job of preventing a lot of weeds, but they don't prevent spurge. You have to come and we spray it in June. It's going to come back. The spurge has a 28-day life cycle. So we can come out on June the 20th, kill all the spurge. 10 days later, on June the 30th, after we sprayed, you have some little spurge seedlings that have germinated. You get a new plant. By July the 14th, 2 weeks after those babies had germinated, about 3 weeks after we sprayed, and it looks like we didn't even spray. All right, and so your soil is a really big part of the greenness of your grass as well as the amount of your weeds. And so behind me, we've got a really good backdrop of subsoil. It's not topsoil, it doesn't have any organic matter in it. Organic matter is gonna contribute some more black, or at least in the spectrum of being more black than just a brown or dark brown, or maybe even a reddish tint. But that subsoil is just clay. It has no organic matter. It doesn't receive water quickly. It hits and it runs off. And so the grass, the roots are not able to live there because the water in the soil is not abundant enough for the grass to be able to thrive. And so I just wanted to point that out. These 2 yards right here at the beginning of the video, same yard, not hardly, there's not very much topsoil at all here, whereas here they've added some topsoil. They've got some sand that was added to this yard, and so the grass is able to, the grass roots are able to receive a lot more water. And one thing I really want you to understand that's very, 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 very important is that the leaves can only be as healthy as the roots. The roots feed the leaves and the leaves feed the roots. The roots get the water and the nutrients and send it to the leaves so you can have more leaves or grass. And the grass gets the sunshine, turns it into food or carbohydrates for the roots so you can have more roots. And so it's this endless cycle of helping each other or feeding each other. And so if you don't have good soil, it's going to be an uphill battle. There's a video we did recently that I'll link here that talks about different hot spots within your yard. So it may not be your yard as a whole. Like this whole yard looks a whole lot better than this whole yard because this whole yard has a lot more topsoil. But sometimes it's just one spot in the yard, and it could be, again, where whether it was done by human, or maybe it's just the way that it's just been forever, is that some spots have more clay than others. And so it just might be this one spot in your yard that's more brown, and it very well could be because of what's under the grass. The soil could be a lot more concentrated clay right there. This is a good part of the yard to talk about how topsoil and population of weeds, or weed population, how they integrate or how they play off of each other. So you can see there's more weeds here than in any other part of the yard. And I can tell you by walking through the yard and just what I can see with my eyes that this is the part of the yard that has the least amount of good topsoil in it. And so, you know, that might sound contradictory to the other part of the video where I said, hey, at the bottom of the gutter, there's more water, so the weeds like it here. And so it sounds contradictory, but if there was one big statement that I would love for you to understand, it's been the most helpful thing for me to understand, is that in weed control, there's a spectrum, okay? So even the word weed is on a spectrum. Like some people consider some weeds a weed, and some people consider them food. For example, dandelion roots are a food. So if you have spurge or any other weed in your yard, please know that we are here to help you to understand why that weed is there and what we plan to do about it. Believe it or not, 99.9% of the time there is a reason that is apart from a mistake as to why that weed is there. Obviously there's that really rare chance, and it does happen because we put out many treatments every year, that there's a failure of what we're trying to do. But all the time it's pretty much because there's just a misunderstanding of whether that weed should be there or not, or you know, it has to do with water and topsoil. So I say that to say not to try to wiggle out of explaining anything. It's the opposite. I'm trying to help you to know, hey, we want to explain it. That's why we do these videos. That's why we welcome your calls. We amply staff our office to be able to have people there to answer your questions, to talk to you, to come visit your yard, to visit it with you. So please reach out if you have questions. I hope this helps, and I hope you have a great day.